Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Micky Zhang, and this is my interior design capstone thesis manuscript defense. The title of my thesis is Interior Design Intervention, Understanding Child Development and the Benefits of Autonomous Education Settings. So this is my table of contents. I will first be introducing myself and my community members. And then the second, I will be going into my literature review. Third, I'll be doing my research agenda. Fourth, my creative agenda. And finally, my conclusion for my thesis. So a little bit about me. My name is Micky Zhang, as I mentioned earlier, and I'm a current fourth year interior design BFA student at Rochester Institute of Technology with a minor in marketing and an immersion in Chinese. And the reason why I decided to do this research topic is because it's directly related to my younger siblings, and their education and development are currently being affected by the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. On my committee, we have Professor Mary Golden as the committee chair. Mary is an assistant professor and the undergrad director for the BFA Interior Design program here at RIT. We have community member Carolyn Lyons, RA. She is a registered architect and project manager at SEI Design Group here in Rochester, and she has over 9 years of experience within the K-12 market. And finally, we have community member Catherine Wolf, CID and CIDQ ALEP, and she is an associate principal and senior interior designer at Ashley McGraw Architects DPC in Syracuse. And Catherine has over 5 years of experience within the K-12 education field now. I would like to personally take the time out of my presentation to thank my community members for taking the time out of their day to be here with us and for supporting me throughout this whole entire year. So for my thesis, the purpose of this investigation is to understand how child development may be impacted by place-related factors within the context of a pandemic and its pending aftermath. This includes understanding the benefits that children receive in a proper educational setting, which is different for every child, as well as understanding the different types of educational environments and the current COVID-19 precautions and restrictions, as well as its disadvantages to children without the proper educational setting. The capstone thesis investigation is important to the discipline at this time because COVID-19 is currently a discussion in many fields, including education, and every institution needs to follow state guidelines as well as operate or how to operate regarding of its class being blended in person or even online. The research question for my thesis is how can elementary school students attend 21st century learning and learn to their full potential within a safe but fun environment with COVID-19 precautions in place without affecting a child's development and well-being? The current change in infrastructure affects over 74 million students in the United States today, and the goal of this study is to determine if there's a new interior design solution that can positively affect the disruption experienced in the K-6 educational setting, and if there are alternative methods that will be conducive to offering an educational standard comparative to pre-pandemic times. So going on to my literature review, the first topic that I researched on was child development. Child development is a time when children consolidate the gains that they made during the rapid growth of preschool period, and when they prepare for dramatic changes of adolescence. So this thesis mainly focuses on children ages 5 to 11. And for this period, many scholars actually do not recognize this period as a significant time. However, this time is actually really important because it is a time when children consolidate what they learn during their pre-grade school years. Children's self-esteem and confidence are developed from their academic and social standing within their educational environment. And some of the important development changes are in a children's cognitive, social, emotional, language, and physical development. And since a child is growing every day, these development categories change every day as well. The chart on the right bottom was developed by the Institute for Human Services for the Ohio Child Welfare Training Program. I recreated the chart to help aid the visuals because the original chart was a little blurry. This chart was designed specifically for child welfare staff, and it includes normal expectations of developmental milestones for children and possible effects of mistreatment. In this chart, you can see that it is broken into different sections related to different parts of child development, and each section gives you multiple milestones that a child starts to hit at the different age categories. Continuing on to my literature review, the next topic that I researched was learning styles. So there are 4 different types of learning styles. Auditory learners learn best from listening to information. Tactile learners learn best from actually doing physical work. Visual learners learn best from visual aids. And finally, kinesthetic learners learn best by actually physically moving their bodies. Learning styles are a combination of many biological and experimental imposed characteristics that contribute to their concentration. So it is said that there 3/5 of a person's learning style is actually biologically imposed, which means that many people who do not have the choice of their learning style or environment, they don't necessarily learn best or fully to their potential. This is the learning styles retention rate pyramid. It breaks down how many types of learners, how each type of learners learn best. And when you look at, while I was looking at different case studies, I found that it's rare for students to remember about 75% of what is said to them in a typical class period. And with that in mind, about 30% of the population is actually considered to be auditory learners, which leaves 70% of the population having a harder time learning because it's not their preferred learning style. Continuing on my literature review, I did research on 21st century learning. 21st century learning is defined using the 5 C's: critical thinking and problem solving, communication, collaboration, citizenship, and creativity and innovation. Typically learning styles in the 21st century learning include critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and communication skills. And the idea of 21st century learning is to create an engaging and personalized environment to meet the emerging educational needs of this generation. Some methods educators use in teaching techniques that incorporate 21st century can be adding more collaborative projects, leadership opportunities, work-based learning, as well as adult guidance. Adult guidance can help classrooms become more student-centric, allowing students to learn independently and build confidence in their interests. So this is the chart that I was referring to with the 21st century 5 C's, and each category explains how each one works. Continuing on with my literature review, I also looked over virtual classrooms. So at the start of the pandemic, over about a year ago, virtual classrooms have become a new way of learning. And however, after doing research, virtual classrooms do not seem to work for every student as well as educators. Virtual learning does not offer every subject to be taught to its full curriculum or full potential. And they also do not provide a fair chance for education, especially for those students whose homes do not have reliable access to the internet. Many educators actually notice this and the difficulties of unreliable internet, not just from their students who have trouble accessing it, but also on their own side as well. And another thing to virtual learning and classrooms is that cyberbullying numbers have increased within students learning online, which actually puts student safety at risk as well. So lastly, the last topic that I researched was COVID-19 guidelines and restrictions. So during the pandemic, schools between all levels had to follow or still have to follow the guidelines from CDC and their state regulations from how to reopen safely. Some restrictions include but are not limited to how many people can be in a certain area, and even within that area, how close people can be to each other. On top of that, children and staff had to wear face coverings, wash their hands often, and stay home if they're not feeling well, all of which are all general safety precautions for the general public. A case study showed that extended school closure, for example, like summer breaks, according to the Northwest Evaluation Association, shows that students lose anywhere between 20 to 27% in year-long gains from academic school years. And many children look at school as a safe place for them to be confident and build their self-esteem. Therefore, extended closure can be also harmful to their mental health, for example, depression and social anxiety. So continuing on, I'm gonna go on to my research agenda. I conducted case studies on China and Finland, as well as conducted surveys for teachers and parents. I also conducted a few interviews for some teachers locally. So the first case study that I conducted was for China. The coronavirus was first known to have originated in China during the end of 2019. And to this day, the virus has affected over 90,000 people within the country. And that is actually the updated number, which actually is a number that is a lot lower than the United States, with 32 million affected up to today. In order to control the virus, China enforced a harsh lockdown and invasive technologies to actually track their residents. And when it came to education, China has over 195 million students throughout its K-12 program. And in order for its students to return to in-person classes, the Chinese government invested heavily in equipping schools with supplies like masks, gloves, and thermometers, as well as other equipments that they needed. And some of the other requirements that students had to follow were providing a negative COVID test like we have to now, and avoiding any unnecessary gatherings. They were not allowed to conversate while eating or even when they're taking public transportation. And they also had to submit their temperatures 3 times a day throughout the whole day. The next case study that I conducted was for Finland. So Finland is known to have one of the top highest educational systems in the world. One of Finland's goals is to provide knowledge and skills in supporting children's growth into the world while making sure children are ethnically responsible members of society. There is also a law that requires teachers to give students 15 minutes of play for every 45 minutes of instruction. And this stems from one of Finland's beliefs that kids should be kids for as long as they can, and they should not have to grow up so fast. There are studies that have shown that students who are given these breaks actually behave and do better in school. So continuing on to my surveys. The first survey that I conducted was for parents, and the purpose of the parent survey was to understand how children are attending classes and if they are attending school is affecting their development and well-being during the current school year. Results from the parents survey indicate that about 42% of students are attending classes fully online and 30% of students are attending classes in hybrid mode. Over 50% of children are either somewhat or rarely paying attention to class, and about 30% of children are unmotivated during class sessions as well. Based on the survey, only 14% of children are auditory learners, meaning 85% of students and children are visual, tactile, or kinesthetic learners. And if you look at the results from children paying attention and their motivation levels compared to their learning styles, it makes sense why the numbers for students who are not paying attention and those not motivated are so high. Fully online classes are mostly catered to either auditory or visual learners, which leave out the other two styles. Some additional indications from the parent survey also indicate that less than 15% of children have positively been affected in their emotional development, which leaves out whereas about like 29% of children have experienced negative effects to their emotional development. In the survey, there was a question that was asked about a child's educational development during this time, and the results show that over 50% of children are experiencing negative effects towards their educational development. And then as well as looking at the results, it's also clear that there's a decline in children's development when it comes to being unmotivated and engaged, which also cause their work quality to decline. Uh, Results also conclude that children learn differently depending on their learning style, and and it's more beneficial for children to when they come to engagement, motivation, and socialization when it comes to child development. Okay. Continuing on, sorry about that. For my educators survey, the purpose of the educators survey was to understand how teachers are teaching their classes depending on which model their classrooms are set to be in, and if their children's development has been affected in any way during this current school year. Results from the survey indicate that about 41% of educators find it difficult to keep children engaged, and this mostly stems from how a child learns and the type of methods that or activities that teachers use to keep their students engaged. Some activities that teachers use to keep their students from the survey included having physical brain breaks, activities, games, and trying to get their students to move around. Since the pandemic hit, 100% of teachers noticed that there was a change in their students' work quality, and teachers mentioned that students do not try as hard or don't even submit their assignments when it comes to their classwork. Some additional findings indicate that 100% of educators say that their children's students' cognitive and educational development have been slightly affected, and some teachers also mentioned that they don't believe that they can provide truly rigorous cognitive tasks while in virtual environment. Continuing on, I will be talking a little bit about my interviews with the local educators in Rochester. So this interview was conducted to further understand how educators plan for classrooms and what they do to accommodate how each children learns during the pandemic. Some main points that resulted from the interview included children having lower reading levels compared to pre-pandemic times, children's social development being affected, and teachers having to modify assignments in order to meet each child's need and their learning styles, which also allows the assignments and activities to be accommodating and inclusive for all children, that no matter how they learn or how they like it. As some classes are still in hybrid and virtual mode, Zoom fatigue is actually a problem or is a constant problem among children and teachers as they have to sit in front of a screen for hours at a time. And lastly, currently in many classrooms in elementary schools anyway, there is usually one main teacher and a special ed teacher where both teachers work together in the class, but the child or student can benefit from having more time with their teacher. These two images were of classrooms that were sent to me from my interviews with my elementary school teachers. And if you look at the right picture, the classroom is in-person model. This teacher typically only sees 1 to 3 students at a time. And if you look at the right picture, this class is held via hybrid model. So half the class comes in at one point, the other comes in at another point, and the location of the classroom is in the gym or really a part of the gym. Each student has an aide that goes with them to the class, and the reason why the classroom was moved to the gym was because the school could not fit all the students, aides, and teachers in a typical classroom size with COVID precautions in place. And if you're looking at these pictures, a common thing that I noticed within these two pictures was that there does not seem like children can have a personalized space or desk because they have to share it with other students in their class. I'll continue, so I'm going to go into my creative agenda now. The concept of my creative agenda is ownership can help children gain confidence, motivation, engagement within their surroundings. And ultimately, I want to produce a product that is educationally used, beneficial to every child, while also taking in mind the usability and functionality of the design itself. In my design thinking, I wanted to create a prototypical set of transportable interior resources that can be used in a classroom or even in a broader education setting, but it's also transferable to home or even in hybrid conditions, for example, let's say the parent's office. This product should keep in mind the safety and functionality and comfortability of the children using it. It should help them build their confidence, as well as support their emotional well-being and stimulate their senses, while challenging their motor skills. The product should also help users build the sense of ownership, increase their productivity, and provide a positive posture. The product will also encourage active learning through increased motivation in everyday learning from the sense of ownership and the color customization. Increase their engagement with the product being flexible and lightweight, where group engagement will be more opening and inviting to others, and as well as build self-independence, which helps children learn in their own way and help increase independence through student-centric learning. For my explorations, I looked at two products, Vidget and camping chairs. So when I was looking at Vidget, Sandra Turner is an RIT alumna who, for her thesis, Classroom Habitat, designed the form of Vidget. This product was centered around finding the balance between control and human nature needs in learning spaces, while inspiring the body to move for improving attention, focus, and academic achievement. And in her research and testing, she found she had 4 kids from a kindergarten class in Fairport, New York. 3 of those kids actually benefited from the product itself because this product gives or supposedly gives them or allows them to develop in a positive environment that they can actually control themselves. And as I was looking at camping chairs are usually foldable, flexible, compactable, lightweight, and transportable. And being able to easily store is one of the key features that camping chairs have because it makes them easy to use and take with you whenever you're on the go. Kids' camping chairs usually come in different color options, which allow children to pick based on what they prefer. So as I was sketching what I wanted my product to look like, some key features and considerations that I thought about for the desk were transportation, needing to be easily transported to different spaces without having too much trouble, customization, being able to customize this product based on what the user or children wanted, lightweight, so wanting the object to be less than 10 pounds, so children's ability to carry this product would be not stressed, and the breakdown of this product would have to be easily done within a matter of minutes. The considerations and key features that I thought about for the chair or seating was similar to the desk considerations. It needed to be lightweight, customizable, break down easily, as well as an easy way to store it. So as the design continued to process and develop on Revit, the product seemed to not be as feasible when it came to the size and shape of this product in the beginning. The product turned to be more bulky than what I imagined and sketched out originally. And after conducting more research on the current options of the tables and desks within the industry, I noticed that there seemed to be a trend of curves within the current designs. And so I started to incorporate curvature to the design and found the standard heights of the desks that the standards needed to be at. So for my material exploration, while still keeping the idea of the weight for the on-the-go desk under 10 pounds, because it is important for children to be able to transport this product to different places, for example, school, home, or any other place that they need to go to. I found that low-density polyurethane is known to be soft, flexible, lightweight, making it easy to be fabricated to form in different shapes. This material is also used on the widget in my case study. Additionally, caster wheels and handles will be added to ensure that the ease of transportation for the user would be easy when it comes to moving the product. And the desk surface would be made of medium density fiberboard or MDF with a white finish and acrylic coating to allow the desk surface to be used as a whiteboard. And the seating material will be fabric to ensure that it is soft, lightweight, and easily replaceable. So after designing, understanding how children develop and how place-related factors affect how a child grows and learns within the surrounding area, and after completing a lot of research and conducting surveys and interviews, children seem to have a lack of confidence, motivation, and comfortability when it comes to learning within their environment. The proposal is to design and develop a on-the-go desk that would feature a flexible and functional desk and chair that can be easily constructed and deconstructed within a matter of minutes. The included desk will be easily accessible, lightweight, and user-friendly, and colors will be customizable within the design to improve productivity, relaxation, and confidence, as well as visual aesthetics. The on-the-go desk is designed to support children during grade school years to help them develop their cognitive and emotional, social, and physical skills. The desk will help children gain a sense of ownership, which will help them lead to build their confidence and active learning skills as they learn to use the desk. The desk is customizable through size and colors depending on what the children prefer, and it is customizable. The option customizable allows children to choose what they like and what they dislike in the product. And different sizing options are available to aid consumers as they grow throughout the grade school years. Here is a 3D view of the final on-the-go desk design. The final design of the on-the-go desk has many different sizing options as the height of the desk ranges from 19 inches to 25 inches and the seat height ranges from 12 inches to 18 inches. The seat can be easily adjustable depending on the height the user prefers and can be easily deconstructed by simply folding the legs up and folding the seat fabric in half. The seat is stored within the desk storage area underneath the desk surface, which is right here, if you can see. And the green box right here shows the desk surface can be removed from the product itself, revealing the under storage compartment. And the yellow box shows how the on-the-go desk would look like when it is folded up for easy transportation. So the standard height on the on-the-go desk in this image is 1 foot 11 inches tall from the bottom of the desk to the top of the desk surface. The desk is 5 inches in depth and 1 foot 6 inches in length. The standard height, seat height is 1 foot, leaving about 6 inches in between the top of the seat and the bottom of the desk for leg room. However, as I mentioned from the previous slide, the heights of the desk and seating can be adjusted based on the user. Here's an overall view and notes of what the on-the-go desk will include and how it works when it comes to transportation and functionality. Hinges are included on all 4 sides for safety and easy removal of the desk surface. The on-the-go desk is customizable with an array of colors to allow children to choose what they want and what type of colors they would like. So to conclude, everything surrounding a child can affect child development and learning styles and how a child behaves and grows. The main focus of the literature review was to understand how child development and learning styles work and how 21st century learning can be used within and outside of the classroom. The research under the focus on gathering data on how children are developing during this time and how educators are accommodating in the current coronavirus pandemic situation. The creative agenda was used to design the on-the-go desk that will encourage students and children to build their confidence that they lack during this time and develop their cognitive, emotional, social, physical, and active learning skills, as well as improve their motivation and engagement during this class time. By providing a sense of ownership and choice within the customization colors and sizing, users will have the sense of autonomy, which will take away the need for constant hand-holding in the classroom, but instead make educational settings student-centric. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. If you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, please let me know.
Josh, we'll open up right for you, please.
Great. Sorry about that. My dog was freaking out. So hopefully he'll stop. Yeah, thank you very much, Micky. It was an interesting presentation. Very meandering in your kind of research. It was very robust and kind of went a really wide range of kind of topics. And compared to some of the other presentations from earlier today, being totally honest, I went back while you were presenting to read what your kind of outcome or where you were headed during the presentation, because the research to me seemed much more open-ended. So I was very curious to kind of where it was eventually channeled. It's a kind of interesting, I think that with COVID and all of the things that are happening right now in the world, we're having to rethink a lot of things. And I like the idea that you started to focus on the actual individual space of learning as a place to create or invent. I think there's something really interesting about that, because it's something. One of the challenges when we're suddenly thrust into this environment where everybody is learning at a distance, the pieces that we can take with us, the kind of nomadic aspect of learning, whether it's at home or at school, the more that you can kind of create, let's say, balance between the two spaces. To me, there's an intuitive sense about that really does make sense, that might be the way that there's some sort of balance or equity placed back into what is a very unequal distribution of resources, right? So I think there's something really interesting. A little bit along those lines, I mean, I think, my question for you is, is this project kind of steeped in a strong belief in like capitalism, or is this something that's more like, is this a product that you're producing, or is this kind of more of like a public school rollout, like something that's more available to everyone? In other words, like, would schools buy this, or would consumers like students and parents buy this product? What do you think?
So actually this question did come up during this whole year, basically. Preferably, schools would be able to provide this for students and families, because then it would basically take away what is in the classroom right now. Which also, like I mentioned before, this project, the reason why I started to do this research was because of my younger siblings. I have one that is 10-year-old and one that is 5-year-old right now. And so I thought of them when I kind of designed this, because I wanted them to be able to be comfortable in their own like setting, and either it being in school or even at home. So preferably, like for parents, it would be the school providing this product, basically.
Okay. Well, interesting. And so a lot of your research when you first started talking about the project that I thought was really interesting is your analysis or the research that you did that talked about the different types of learners.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you talked about those being kind of auditory learners. How they're more minimally impacted by remote school, whereas tactile or kinesthetic learners are much more deeply affected. How do
Mm-hmm.
you, how do you think that your device responds to the learners that are not to kind of traditionally auditory learners? Like how does it improve their ability to learn in that scenario?
Mm-hmm. Um, Okay, so the reason why I added the whiteboard onto the desk as the desk surface was because then students who are not auditory learners or even visual learners can use that surface however they please. So like they can like draw out sketches if they wanted to for whatever reason or whatever class that they were in. um like knowing my younger siblings, they would probably try to like use that surface as their way of learning. They might like use pieces of paper and move it around, or like use a white uh expo marker and like draw or like erase. So that was my idea behind that. Mostly just so that they can use that surface itself um in their own way,
Hmm.
if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, and I think along those lines, in looking at the kind of arc of your presentation and that um, approach, or thinking about the fact that your device is geared towards working between kind of auditory learners and kinesthetic learners and so forth. It's really important when you create representations of your design that you really think about not just presenting the object, but how the object actually functions, right? Like even if you look at the case study, which I really appreciated the fact that you had a case study, like another project,
Mm-hmm.
the Vigi Kids
Mm-hmm.
product. I thought that was a really interesting product. I want to know more about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and even just looking at that product that you used as a case study, they had a photograph, and they had the photograph of the device in 3 different configurations, right? And the kids
Yeah.
kind of engaging it in that way. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of instructive if you look at that. That's a product that obviously has been through some R&D and some development, and there's some sophistication to the way that it's presented. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that you could look at that as a kind of an example of maybe how you want your representations of your work to start to develop. And there's two benefits to that. One, it's instructive for people like me who are looking at the product to understand how you're thinking about using it, that it actually
Mm-hmm.
has a kind of a tactile part, and it also has a kind of auditory, more traditional portion. And I'd be able to discern that, which your
Mm-hmm.
presentation right now doesn't do it. But the other reason it's important to kind of use that type of representation is it's a feedback loop. It's for you a way to learn about your design, like the forcing the or going through the effort of putting like a figure in, drawing on it, or showing it in that perspective, and looking at it from a plan view, looking at it from a side view, looking at a section view, really makes you start to study your object in a
Mm-hmm.
much more precise way. And I think if you did that, you would have made other discoveries, right? Like I love the your device, the kind of portability of your device.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think the fact that it like becomes essentially a suitcase
Mm-hmm.
is a kind of great idea. I mean, I think back like when my kids were small, we were like rushing through the airport. I would always throw them on the suitcase with the pull handle and pull them around. There's a kind of utility to it, and a fun aspect to the fact that I could see kids would love, like they're carrying their desk, and you
Mm-hmm.
seem to be attentive to the fact that you had a kind of scalability that was important to keep small. I do think some of your dimensions that you went through, I would double check those. They seem like they're impossibly small. I mean, maybe they work to the scale of a very small child, but I would, it wants to be small, but it needs to be kind of realistic at the size of a desk as well. So, but the portability, super interesting. I mean, have you looked at like, some case studies? I was thinking about, the Eames and the way that they approached furniture and the kind of utility of furniture and the invention that they used using other processes. Like Ray and Charles Eames, the kind of iconic designers of the 60s that did a lot of furniture. Molded plywood was one of their kind of big inventions, and that was something that they were able to develop through R&D for other industries like splint making and so forth. Alvar Aalto did similar studies, but even people like Buckminster Fuller, like their kind of approach to the kind of super utility of something becoming the kind of seed of invention for your project is something that I think could really be kind of a way to excite your product. And I'm going to be direct in your project more than some of the others. Yours, your project is almost more of a product than a space. And in that way, I think you're kind of in this special zone insofar as, as architects, one of the things I always, grouse about is the fact that in most cases in architecture and in interior design, we're building the prototype, right? The one that we build that goes out into the world is a prototype. It's a prototype that's informed by lots of other projects that we've done in the past. But the one that the instantiation that happens right, for the client is a one-off. In the case of your project, you're talking about something that you would actually get a chance to design, make prototype one, build again. I love the cat, part of the presentation. Build again, try it again. And there's a real, I mean, that obviously could be intimidating, but it actually is really liberating when you think about it, because you get to make mistakes and make new ones and make mistakes. And so if you continue on with this, because I think it's a really interesting idea, like you need to build lots and lots. And I'm sure you did other studies. I know this isn't the first version that you're showing us, but there's a interview with a Dyson, the vacuum cleaner maker. He made thousands of versions of the Dyson vacuum before he perfected it. And I think that, you have to do that kind of hyper rigorous study. And I think in part of that prototyping, and how am I doing on time? Am I okay, Mary?
Well, we're just about there, but if you want to
sure.
take a few minutes to close comments, we can open up.
Yeah. So the last thing I would say is, in relationship to that idea of prototyping, the one thing, and I think that this is to me the most critical part, especially when you're talking about kids and the kind of interactivity, is the joy. And like you talked about color and the kind of interactivity and like all of these things that were really exciting as ideas to me, but your representations, I didn't see them. And I think that there's a lot of joy in the idea of what you're creating, but you need to that joy needs to be part of your not only representation, but your kind of design thinking and then the implementation, right? And I think that in the color, the sizing, the scale, pieces that move off, the whole deployment and pick up and take apart, I mean, there's a lot of joy in that. And I think if you invest in the kind of prototyping and making and development of your project, invest that kind of joy, it'll really kind of push it into new directions. And I think that case study, really you see that, right, very distinctly in that project. And so I think that I would keep pushing. I think it's a really interesting concept, actually. What you've developed for your thesis is like a concept that has a lot of really interesting potential. So congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Carolyn and Catherine, you can jump right in. We have about a little under 10 minutes left, please.
Okay, I'll start if my cat behaves. I think you did a great job. The presentation is really nice. I'm so sorry.
Okay, I love your cat.
It's been really fun for me to see you through this process and see the development that you've done. I think there were a couple things that you did a ton of research, and it was really great to see all that. And I was just wondering, like, how did you tie all of the different like development types that you spent so much time researching on, like into your final product design. So you had talked about like physical development, emotional, like how do you see all of those?
I think you cut out a little bit, but I think I got the gist of your question just now. Okay, so for the 5 developments of child development, basically. So for um, cognitive was mostly just thinking about like how, because cognitive is mostly like your mind working, right? Like how children's mind work or how they think about certain things. And so for the on the go desk, it was more so for like them having to think about how to use this desk, because in the very beginning when they first receive this desk, they need to figure out how to work it, how to construct it and even deconstruct it. And then when it comes to social and emotional development, so for social development, it also kind of connects with the active learning skills as well, because the whole idea of this test was that they can work in group environments, and because it is transportable, so different students and different peers can come together in a group and work together. So that was for the social development part. Emotional development came from the fact where because this is their product, this is their desk, it's their own personal desk, it would help them build their confidence, is where the emotional development came in. And then the physical development, sorry, I had to think about what came into it, is where the fact that they can physically transport the product from place to place, as well as they can move it as, again, place to place, but in a group setting, basically.
Yeah. So I'm glad you touched on the collaboration thing, because I know that was one thing that we talked about, bringing these desks into the classroom and how they could be used in a classroom setting as a collaboration effort, as well as being at home or wherever. I really liked Josh's comment about capitalism, because it got me thinking, like, this is almost replacing classroom furniture.
Yeah.
So and it could be replacing like their backpacks too. So I think it's a really cool idea, and there's a ton more development to do for sure. But I think you did a really great job.
Thank you so much.
I definitely echo what has been said here. I really have enjoyed how things have developed throughout this past year, and your thinking and your approach has challenged some of my thinking as well, and allowed me to view the work that we do in a slightly different way. I do have, I think, just 2 questions as it relates to primarily the development of the product. So your response to the creative agenda. And I'm going to just ask them both, and then you can respond to them. So the first was, you said that you set out to study this topic because you have a personal connection to it. Your siblings are impacted by this. So I'm wondering, first and foremost, did you test this concept with your siblings? Did you run it by them and like get response from them and reaction? And did that help inform your design?
Okay.
And then the next question that I have is as it relates to ownership. Maybe it'd be beneficial though to pause and let you to respond to the sibling question before I go on to the ownership.
Okay. Unfortunately, I did not get to test this product on my siblings because they are in New Jersey and I have not been home since school started. Also because of COVID-19, my parents are just like, it's safer for you to not come home right now. So I unfortunately did not get to test it on them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then this notion of ownership. So I like that you reiterated, sorry, I'm looking off to my notes, which is why I'm not looking at the screen, but you reiterated it time and time again, creating these personalized environments, creating these opportunities for students to build confidence and really grow their developmental skills and meet those milestones. And I'm wondering, by giving them ownership of the desk, are you in turn communicating that they don't have ownership of the rest of the space? And how could that potentially be mitigated, or how could that thinking potentially be adjusted so that it's not just this is your desk, this is where you work, but this is your desk and as part of larger opportunities?
I actually believe that when we met up together, you actually asked me this exact question actually, because I remember the gist of it. Because I do remember that when I answered this question for you before, I mentioned that the desk itself is it. Yes, the ownership is theirs, but it doesn't mean that everywhere else is not theirs as well, if that makes sense. More so that the idea behind this ownership of this desk is that this is a safe space for them to come back to if they were to venture off, let's say, to hang out with their friends or go off to a different group setting. They can always come back to this product because it's their safe space.
That makes a lot of sense. And I'm just thinking, like what you said just triggered in my mind, having that consistency that, you know, should they need to go home for extended periods of time, whether it's for quarantining or God forbid there's ever another pandemic, having that consistency to have your workstation in whatever learning environment you are could potentially help with, you know, the engagement issues, the learning loss, and associating that I'm at this desk, so I'm in a learning mode. I appreciate that you took the furniture route, because I was, when you first started all of this, I was envisioning, what does this mean for space? But as I've been thinking about it throughout this year, furniture realistically is what dictates in majority of schools how the rooms are functioning, how they're being used. And so by introducing this, you could transform the opportunities for many schools and many students that might not have the means to do major capital projects to adjust learning environments. So thank you. I think you did a great job.
Thank you so much for all your support, and same for you, Kevin.
Thank you, everybody, for your comments, and congratulations, Micky. I'd like to extend a sincere thank you on behalf of RIT Interior Design to Josh and to our committee members, Catherine and Carolyn, for your feedback and your support of Micky throughout the whole year. We're indebted to all of you for your cross-examination of our students' work. So I'd like for us now to enter into the breakout room where we can have our conversation. And I just want to recognize and thank the audience for their attention and support. And this completes our final oral defense from Micky Zhang. Anyone on the call that would like to stay on for the final presentation of the day is welcome to do so. And thank you all for attending.